expedite PIN issuing. One thing to keep in mind, when they hit submit on their claim, again, they're not going to get their PIN immediately. So if they are trying to get a new PIN, it only, unfortunately, may delay the process of getting one in the first place. So the request is you submit your claim, you should get your PIN within 3 to 4 days of requesting your benefit payment. Quick update on benefits paid, which was in the release, which Ryan may or may not touch on. We are seeing, again, record numbers of just even, not only, of course, it's corresponding, but number of applications submitted and record numbers of benefits going out the door already. And Ryan, you can keep me honest, but we've surpassed levels that we saw in 2009. We're on track to surpass those, certainly with the number of benefits we're paying out on a weekly basis. We are just over around 266,000 applications submitted since, Jeff, if you can correct me if I'm wrong, I think around the 23rd is when we started, or the 16th of March, keeping track on that number.
Yes, that's accurate, Chair.
Okay. So again, tomorrow's release for March numbers, I think, will give you a more detailed view and insight into what we're seeing and where we expect to go from here. And then lastly, give you a quick update on implementation of the CARES Act. This is the federal legislation that was signed and provides for expansion of benefits to new worker groups who never before were eligible for unemployment, including gig workers, independent contractors, and self-employed, and those who have been directly impacted by COVID-19 or out of work. Think about this as anybody who may not have been eligible for regular unemployment may now be eligible for these benefits under the CARES Act. Included within the CARES Act is the $600 of additional benefit amount. We call that pandemic unemployment compensation. And again, we are very close, actually, as I've mentioned to some of you individually, to announcing both the payments of those $600 benefits, which will be retroactive to March 29th, and all of the new eligible worker category groups, that's referred to as Pandemic Unemployment Assistance, or PUA. Both of those systems we're hoping to push out at the same time. Just FYI, a very small group of states has been able to stand up that PUA program and also pay benefits. So we do think Colorado will be one of the few states to actually do both at the same time. So with that, Jeff, anything to add before I go to some of these questions?
Nothing to add at this time. I think you covered it very well. Thanks, Chair.
Okay. So I think I've answered the self-employed questions. Is there something else that I missed? I do see, Ryan, do you know off the top of your head how many initial claims for all of 2019? We can find that data point out.
Chair, would you like to talk about pandemic unemployment assistance and the technology system that we're leveraging for that?
Yeah, that would
okay. The question was, one of the chatted questions was, is the lack of, or is COBOL issues delaying the processing of claims? And specifically, I think that's attributable to possibly the question about pandemic unemployment assistance. The answer to that question is no. We're leveraging a new technology that does not have COBOL programming part of it. That is a system we are standing up. We are already in process of modernizing our base unemployment insurance system. And so we're going to be leveraging that new technology to deliver specifically the pandemic unemployment assistance. That system will need to speak with our other system, the regular unemployment insurance system, but it is not COBOL based. And so that is not attributable to the timeline.
I think as evidenced in, we are actually ahead of where the majority of states are in our process of reprogramming our systems. So some still use COBOL, some have modernized completely off of their legacy systems. We're somewhere in between, and yet I think we will be among the first, not just to accept the claim Some states have accepted the claims and then the claims sat for several weeks. We wanted to make sure we could both accept and process in the system, and that's where we hope to be. Again, I think more news to come on that tomorrow or the day after, and we hope to have some movement pretty quickly within the next several days. Let's see what we can address. Jeff, can you speak a little bit about nonprofits and how those interact with the unemployment insurance system? I know we've received questions on faith-based organizations and nonprofits, and if I'm not mistaken, I think that was actually covered somewhere in the CARES Act.
Right. So a host of entities are what's called reimbursable employers, including the state of Colorado, as a matter of fact. And so what that means is on a dollar for dollar basis, they traditionally pay exactly what they would owe on claims related to their separations, as opposed to being a contributory employer to the state UI trust fund. So they just pay on a dollar for dollar basis for the claims that they're responsible for. As part of the CARES Act, the federal government will be offsetting that reimbursable rate by 50%. So that is not coming out of state dollars. That's being reimbursed at the federal level to provide 50% relief for entities that broadly fall into that category.
Thank you, Jeff. Do you want to give a quick update on work-share numbers too, since we just pulled new numbers last night?
Yeah, happy to do that. We've got 600, and bear in mind, pre-COVID-19, we started with 6 work-share agreements. We now have 681 active plans that are covering just over 7,400 employees.
Say that again.
We've got 681 active employers that are participating in work-share, and that covers just over 7,400 employees within the state of Colorado.
And I think one of the questions is about our weekly numbers we're putting out. That does include work share as well.
Yes, it's going to cover anyone who's claiming any level of benefits.
So back to PUA, once we are able to accept applications, which again, we hope to announce that very soon in the next couple of days as to when people will begin to apply. What's the cadence, Jeff, for after applying for PUA, the payment of benefits?
Right. So what'll happen is an individual will be able to go in and apply for pandemic unemployment assistance. And it really, their payments will really be dependent upon how far back they're claiming that they were impacted in terms of lack of work. So federally, the guidelines allow people to go back as far as February 2nd in terms of benefit coverage. So if they have weeks in arrears that they're claiming that they had a loss of income, they'll be able to go in once they are certified and through the system, which may take a day or two. But specifically for back weeks, after they go through that certification process, they will be able to go in again 1 or 2 business days later and immediately file for payment, request payment on the weeks in arrears. So that'll be the base unemployment that the assistance that they'll be receiving, as well as the $600 per week.
I think we answered this question, but guidance on how we're determining who qualifies for PUA. Yes, I think we believe we have adequate guidance. That guidance is what was helping us program our systems. Again, it's part one is to take the claim, but we wanted to make sure when we were taking the claim that we were able to also determine eligibility for the benefit and pay the benefit. And so, yes, I think we believe we have that guidance on PUA now and are in the final stages of programming in a testing phase now. So again, more to come on when we will be able to begin accepting those claims soon.
Can I add something to that, Chair?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, it sort of speaks to the complexity of all the interplay of the systems. Essentially, how it works is that it's clear that pandemic unemployment assistance is supposed to be the benefit of last means, not the benefit for first means. So every application will be screened for eligibility for regular unemployment And if it's deemed ineligible for regular unemployment, then it will be triaged. And this is all behind the scenes. The customers don't have to do anything different. Then it'll be triaged for pandemic unemployment assistance. So it sort of speaks to some of the complexity of the guidance.
I don't think we have work share numbers at the county level without doing some reporting, Jeff. I think Jeff mentioned pre-COVID, we had very little employer interest in this program. We also had a 2.5% unemployment rate in February. So we have had to kind of realign resources to meet the demand from employers into work shares. So I don't know that we have county level data available. It's certainly something we could look at, obviously not interfering with some of our other reporting priorities with the demand for benefits. Jeff, anything to add to that?
No, I don't have that data offhand.
Okay. Are we experiencing delays in applying for UI? After the week of the 16th, when we reprogrammed our online system, that's when we were able to experience more stability in online applications. So no, I think we expected to see that really large surge in applicants the first 2 weeks. And we also expected it to level off a bit, which is where we are and where we were last week with the little bit lower number of initial claims filed. And now I think with the ability to take those PUA claims very soon, we'll see it continue to go back up as expected. The issue with the PUA claims, obviously, is we do not know the universe of gig workers. We don't know who might be a gig worker and also has another job. And so I can have Ryan speak very quickly on what we can kind of estimate in terms of self-employed and independent contractors. But this is an issue every state is facing, is that number one, this group has never been eligible for unemployment. So we don't have any historical record. For example, during the recession, this worker group was not eligible for unemployment. And so the universe, quite frankly, is somewhat unknown. Ryan, anything to add about the only data that we do have available?
Yeah, so unfortunately, we do not have state level data available in terms of how many, say, gig workers there are, or self-employed, or independent contractors. Using US data as kind of a baseline estimate, I estimate there's probably around 370 self-employed and independent contractors in Colorado. Again, though, those individuals may also work for a payroll employer or covered employer. So in terms of those who exclusively work as a self-employed individual or gig worker, we don't know. But as we start getting more PUA claim data in, we'll be able to kind of do better analysis in terms of claims load for that group.
Okay. That was 370,000.
370,000. And so gig workers, all right, I'll try to keep this simple, but gig workers, there's a lot of different definitions of what can include a gig worker. If we're talking someone who works for, say, Uber or Lyft, those are individuals we would term as someone who works through an online intermediary. That could be somewhere between 1% and 2% of our total labor force, which in February was about 3.1 million. So you're looking at roughly between 15,000, 30,000 individuals, give or take, who work for the gig workers, if you're kind of defining it as those who, again, work for Uber, Lyft, Instacart, companies like that.
So I'll just go back to a few things. We did already address the COBOL issue, but we're happy to just kind of reinforce that, Jeff, on COBOL, and then we'll take a few more. If we don't get to your questions in this session, I'm capturing all these and I will provide a response to you all after. Obviously, I'm also happy with Jeff and or Ryan to do a follow-up, but I did want to get through to some of Ryan's data on the call. Jeff, just quickly, the marriage of old and new technology and where we are, a lot of interest in, it's actually odd that we're still using a language from, I think, the 80s, but do you want to speak to that again, just quickly?
Yeah, so as Cher alluded to, we're sort of in a middle space between old and new technologies. We still have our base system that processes regular unemployment insurance benefits. We were in the process of modernizing that system and making a transition to a new modernized system when all of this unfolded. And so what we've done is, as a means to leverage that new technology and also to keeping in mind the sheer claims load, and looking to spread that load across systems effectively, we're going to be leveraging the new technology platform, which is a modern technology, not COBOL based, for pandemic unemployment assistance. So we expect a considerable volume of claims to come through that system, and we are proud to be standing up that new technology to effectively serve that population.
I would just add to our update, while we're not able to give details quite yet, but we hope to tomorrow or the next day. As other states have done, we have been exploring outsourcing some of our call center activity, because I know we have a few questions here about call center activity. The call center is just like the online system, which is just like the PIN production process. All of it was handling 2,000 claims a week, and now we're at, upwards of, in some weeks, 60,000. And so the sheer volume of calls into the call center is just unmanageable, quite frankly. And so we are nearing the final stages of the work with a vendor, and that vendor will be able to help us more effectively take the pressure off of our regular unemployment call center. And what we're hoping is we'll actually address these claims within PUA specifically. As we know, again, we don't know the universe, but we know there is a high demand from independent contractors and gig workers, and that's what the new call center will help us address. Again, that and all of the CARES Act updates we mentioned earlier, more detail to come in the next day or two. And so with that, I think I am going to go ahead and turn it over to Ryan, but Jeff, if you and I can kind of scroll back through the chats and see what we're able to answer at the end, that would be great.
Thanks, Cher. I'm trying as best as I can to keep track of these questions that I can answer. So I'm going to try to incorporate responses to those within my talking points here. So the Colorado Department of Labor and Employment has identified a number of statewide unemployment insurance statistics we'd like to highlight through these weekly press calls and press releases. I will go over each statistic, provide some historical context, and lend some guidance on how to interpret the data's meaning and significance. These are the most recent data available at this time. The data I will discuss come from two sources: a federally required report the department submits to the Employment and Training Administration every week, and statistics generated for internal use and analysis. I would like to begin with the data we submit to the Employment and Training Administration. These data are the official estimates of unemployment insurance claims activity in Colorado. Every state is required to submit this information, so these data are comparable across area and time. The headline data are initial claims. An initial claim is one filed to establish eligibility for unemployment benefits. Initial claims data are released on a 1-week lag. So the most recent data available is for the week ending April 11th. The state processed and recorded 104,217 initial claims for the week ending April 11th. Adding that to the 127,393 total initial claims filed the 3 weeks prior, that yields over 231,000 claims filed in a 4-week period. For comparison, that sum exceeds the number of initial claims filed on an annual basis from 2011 to 2019. So just to kind of put some numbers behind that, in 2011, 208,000 claims were filed for that entire year. 2019, it's about 102,000 claims filed for that year. I do have a question about, do we have projections, or do we have estimates in terms of, do we expect claims to continue increasing? How long will the increase happen? I really do think we need a couple more weeks of data to kind of make that assessment. We did have 46,000 claims roughly the week prior, 100,000 this week. I discussed last week that that might be due to, again, individuals waiting to file, or just kind of an overload of the system. But I don't think 100,000 is necessarily going to be representative of what we'll see on a week-to-week basis. But again, that's something that I personally will need kind of a little more data to see, what are the levels going to look like on a longer term. Again, we're only looking at 4 weeks here. And again, 231,000 is a very incredible number. But again, a couple more weeks to kind of gauge that, I think. And we will also start tracking PUA claims. So right now we're talking about regular UI claims, but when we start incorporating PUA, that will also add to the overall total. So the next data are continued claims. A continued claim is filed weekly after eligibility has been established through an initial claim. Not all weeks claimed result in payment because the claimant might not be available to work, may have earnings that exceeded that amount, the allowed amount, or other reasons. Continued claim data are released on a 2-week lag. So the most recent data available is for the week ending April 4th. The state had 166,357 continued claims for the week of the 4th. This is by far the most ever Colorado continued claims recorded in a single week. As a reminder, the previous state record for most continued claims in a single week was 78,978, which occurred the week of January 30th, 2010. I also have a question in terms of, adjusting claims for population. Is this comparable to the Great Recession? We release initial claims on absolute levels, not necessarily adjusted for population or per capita. But this next statistic we'll discuss does kind of make an adjustment for that. So I will discuss that and kind of how you can use this statistic to measure unemployment insurance activity over time. The rapid rise in continued claims has produced a similar effect for the insured unemployment rate, or IUR. As I've mentioned in previous weeks, the IUR incorporates continued claim data and estimates the share of the state's UI-covered workforce claiming unemployment insurance benefits. The insured unemployment rate is also released on a 2-week lag, with most recent data available for the week of the 4th. The IUR for the week of the 4th was 1.39%. This represents the first time since June 2015 that at least 1.39% of the state's UI-covered workforce were claiming benefits. For historical comparison, the IUR in 2009 and 2010 at the height of recession on a weekly basis averaged around 3%, and it peaked at 3.52%. Shifting to UI data that we generate for internal department use and analysis. As previously stated, not all weeks claimed result in payment. However, we do have data for weeks paid. Number of weeks paid are on a 1-week lag. So the most recent data available is for the week ending April 11th. There were nearly 160,000 weeks paid during the week of the 11th, and over 232,000 weeks paid when activity from the week of April 4th is included. During the Great Recession, the most weeks paid over a 2-week period was 132,400. That was in March 2010. So when we take that weeks paid volume and translate into benefits, that means that about 62 million in benefits were paid out for the week ending April 11th. And nearly 92 million paid out over the past 2 weeks. I believe that as long as weeks paid remain at highly elevated levels, again, as long as claims remain high, I anticipate that at least 50 million in weekly benefit payments as extremely likely. I did have a question about, how long can the state pay benefits? Did Colorado run out of money during the Great Recession? So I think this is probably a good time to talk about that as I'm talking about benefit amounts. The state trust fund at the beginning of the COVID outbreak had about 1.1 billion in it. Obviously, with the high level of benefit levels, we're certainly keeping an eye on what the trust fund levels are. However, we will be able to borrow from the federal government if the trust fund does go insolvent, and that's exactly what we did during the Great Recession, along with private bonding in 2011, 2012. So even if the trust fund does go insolvent, UI claimants will be able to receive benefit payments. Finally, I would like to cover some detailed initial claims data. This is specifically Colorado industry level claims and total claims by county. Due to timing and definitional differences, these claim statistics vary from the official figure submitted weekly to the Employment and Training Administration. Therefore, they should not be directly compared to the statewide initial claims estimates. These detailed claims data are available on a 3-week lag. So the most recent data available we have is for the week ending March 28th. These are also data sets we have made publicly available. Data for the week of April 4th should be released tomorrow afternoon. I had a question about demographic information. We're working on trying to put that together in a similar format as the county and industry level data. I'm hoping to have that released within the next week or so. But again, we're just trying to fortunately kind of piecemeal this out, but we will have demographic data available at the state level. So at the county level, the 5 counties with the most claims for the week of the 28th were concentrated along the Front Range and Metro Denver area. So these were Adams, Arapahoe, Denver, El Paso, and Jefferson. Those 5 counties accounted for 57% of all county level claims activities for the week of the 28th. That combined share is slightly higher than it was on a weekly average during 2019 when it was 54%. Another way to approach county level claims is to look at counties with the largest weekly increase in claims relative to 2019 levels. For the week of March 28th, Summit County had the largest relative increase, 1,231 claims versus a weekly average of 13 in 2019. That translates to a 95-fold increase. Grand, Routt, Gilpin, and Chaffee counties rounded out the top 5 in relative claims activity. And as you saw in today's press release, we listed the 5 industry sectors with the most initial claims for the week of the 28th. This is the same list as the week of the 21st. By far, the most claims were in accommodation and food services, followed by healthcare and social assistance, retail trade, other services, and arts, entertainment, and recreation. Those 5 sectors combined to represent nearly 73% of all industry level claims. Retail trade moved from 5th to 3rd most claims over that week period. At a detailed level, the industries driving claims activity in retail trade were auto dealers, clothing stores, sporting goods stores, and furniture stores. About half of retail claims during the week of the 28th came from those 4 detailed industries. Of the industries I did not mention previously, manufacturing and wholesale trade had the largest jumps in claims when comparing activity from the week of March 21st to the week of March 28th. At a detailed level, the most initial claims in manufacturing were in beverage manufacturing and printing activities. Again, beverage manufacturing is going to have your breweries, distilleries, and wineries. Mining, which is dominated by oil and gas, recorded approximately 500 initial claims during the month of March. That monthly total represents about a third of the total number of claims filed in mining in 2019. So it is clear that historically low oil prices are affecting that industry. And I did have a question about healthcare claims. I touched on this a bit last week, but what we're primarily seeing is healthcare claims being driven by 4 detailed industries. That's going to be offices of dentists, offices of other health practitioners, offices of physicians, and child daycare services. Things like offices of chiropractors and optometrists. So and those really do represent a large portion of those healthcare claims, healthcare and social assistance. So that's what I have for my talking points, and I am not caught up on the questions that have come through since.
Thanks, Ryan. I actually think you are pretty well caught up. We were going to go back over a few things that we did address at the beginning of the call, and just a few reminders. One thing is a message we would love for you to help us get out is about fraud. Just to remind folks, you should never be asked for personal identifying information. If somebody, we've heard of some scams where people are actually even going door to door to help with filing of an unemployment, and in the process are asking for PII. That would never be something that we would ask for, nor would we call anyone and ask for bank routing information, a payment to receive a debit card. So I don't think, Jeff, we have seen a great instance of this in Colorado, but certainly the more people you have who are in need of benefits and, quite frankly, anxious and you know, and in a new system they've never used before, they don't know what to be aware of. So that's just one thing nationally we've been asked to alert folks to be aware of. Jeff, anything to add on the fraud front? I know we saw a few things from U.S. Department of Labor on that recently.
I think you covered it well. Nothing specific in Colorado, thankfully, but there are some national news and national alerts that we're seeing. But I think you covered it well.
Okay. So,
Cher.
Yes.
Sorry. I had a couple questions that were just sent directly to me. But do we have a sense of furlough versus layoff? Unfortunately, we do not have the ability to. I don't have the ability to break that out. In our current population survey data we get through the Bureau of Labor Statistics, we might be able to measure that over time in terms of those who are temporarily laid off versus those who are permanently laid off. But in terms of those week-to-week claims data, we're not able to break that out. Also had a question, is 2011 claims total the record? It is not. We had more claims in 2009 and 2010 on an annual basis, and I'm happy to send that number out. I just don't have it on hand at this moment.
Before I turn it back over to Jeff to just do a little refresher on CARES about what we spoke to earlier, one of the provisions within PUA per the guidance from the U.S. Department of Labor is that states embark on an active outreach campaign to let claimants know that these benefits are now available. Certainly, we are leveraging our partnerships with you all to help us get that word out. And so as soon as we are able to accept those claims, which again, we hope is very soon, accept those applications and quickly get those benefits out, which will be retroactive, by the way, which I'll have Jeff speak to. Really appreciate your help in letting folks know the process, what to expect, what documents they might need, particularly with the self-employed and independent contractors. And so look forward to those announcements, as I said at the beginning of the call, very soon in the next day or two. Jeff?
Thanks, Cher. Yeah, I should have started with a refresher on all of the elements and as well as the dates, because not all the dates exactly match up under the CARES Act. So let's talk first about pandemic unemployment assistance. And so that is for basically people who do not qualify for regular unemployment insurance, and even people that have expired or exhausted, I should say, regular unemployment insurance, as well as those like gig workers and independent contractors and the like, and some very unique situations with regards to COVID-19. So those benefits are federally funded, entirely federally funded. The dates of availability for those benefits go back to February 2nd, and at present extend through December 26th. So that is the date range that people can apply for and get those benefits as it stands right now. People are eligible for up to 39 weeks of benefits should they need it. And again, as soon as we start processing those applications, the applications can be retroactively set such that they can get benefits going back as far back as February 2nd, if that is a date that applies to them. Another element that was added within the CARES Act is a 13-week extension of regular unemployment insurance benefits. So typically it's 26 weeks. The feds have, under the CARES Act, they have added 13 weeks, also completely federally funded. That does not come out of our state trust fund, so that there's a mirroring of the two systems. So regular unemployment of 26 plus the 13 equals 39 total weeks that you can be eligible for regular unemployment insurance benefits. The dates of availability for those 13 additional weeks are starting the week of March 29th. And again, that can be retroactive, extending through December 26th. Now, layering on top of all of that, regardless of which type of benefit you're getting, regular unemployment insurance, the extended weeks, or pandemic unemployment assistance, is a weekly flat set $600 per week for any benefit that's being paid out. That's also 100% federally financed. That is retroactive to March 29th and extends through July 25th as it stands right now. So that's March 29th through July 25th. A question we've gotten a lot is, do I have to do anything different to get that additional $600? The answer is no. That'll be a flat set amount that's added to every single benefit claim for the appropriate timeframes. Again, only going through July 25th as it stands right now, but there's no additional process you need to go through to get that $600. In terms of, there was a question about, is there something that folks that are on pandemic unemployment assistance need to do to verify their situation as it relates to COVID-19? What it'll do is it'll ask you to document your income. So what we're asking for is, if you have 2019 tax documents, that's preferable. So you need to bring to the table when you go to file your 2019 tax documents to demonstrate all of your earnings. Should you not have that yet, your 2018 tax documents will suffice, and anything quarterly you might have for 2019 as well. And then what you'll be asked to do is, if you're specifically eligible for pandemic unemployment assistance only, and you happen to be a self-employed or a gig worker or an independent contractor, you'll be asked to self-attest that one of the categories that you're claiming is your situation, that applies to you. So essentially, for example, I am caring for another person that has been diagnosed with COVID-19, and therefore I cannot work right now. You'll be asked to self-attest that is the true, that is an accurate statement. And every time you go to request payment, that'll be true as well. You have to attest to that, and also attest to the fact that you did not work in the previous week, or that you worked and you had partial earnings in the previous week. I think I covered most of the details. Is there anything I missed, Cher?
I don't think so. I was going to offer up, I'm just sending everyone again my email address if we didn't get to your questions. And do you see that last one, Jeff, while I close us out, the last one from Andy Kenny?
Yeah, so working full-time is defined as 32 hours a week or more. So if you've suffered, if you are not working full-time, you might be eligible for partial benefits. So that would be true under pandemic unemployment assistance as well. You might be eligible for partial benefits. So if you can demonstrate and attest to the fact that COVID-19 has even had a partial impact on your capacity to earn, then you can apply and get partial benefits.
Okay, I think I will conclude the call. A couple of reminders. Tomorrow, March jobs numbers released at 8 a.m., press call at 10 a.m. We'll send out an advisory later this afternoon with the call-in info for that call, and look for an announcement on when we are ready to take those new PUA claims in the next day or two. But we're very close. And thanks for joining, and talk to you soon. Bye-bye.